Hi, this is Richard with the WoodCombers Life. Thanks for joining me. Today we're going to be actually covering an issue that I have, which is I love to watch my YouTube on my iPad, but holding it in my hands gets tiring after a while, and so I'm going to build a stand for my favorite chair. So let's get drawing here. Basically, I have a 1920s chair. Let's get a little pen here, which is basically on a stand like this. That is my chair. What I was thinking is I really want to have my tablet have some type of mount so that the tablet can sit on it. At the same time, I want to make something light. So maybe even like a tripod effect would work for that. Coming from the front, it's probably more like a pad. Have my pad sitting on there. Maybe something like that, which would allow me then to put some light straps or light pieces of wood that would then run down both sides, something like that, so that my chair, I could then be sitting here looking at the tablet itself. Okay, we're going to start off with actually these pieces of walnut. I have a friend who, his father-in-law actually made clocks, and I have a couple of these big pieces of walnut. Pretty gorgeous wood. I've been trying to figure out what to do with these, so I think I'll start with the scratch from that. As well as we're going to be working with cherry today. I think the cherry and walnut will actually be a good combination in that sense. One of the things that I was building, started working on this, is basically the idea that two of these would sit into this block of wood, and then somehow this would then be connected so that these would not slide up and down related to it and basically be the stand. Why don't I take a second and actually explain what we're going to do. This is a mortiser. This has been technology that's been around for a long time. Basically what it is it's an auger bit that runs through the middle, and at the same time it has these little chisels. So basically what it does is the drill drills through, then the chisel actually squares off the corners of the mortises that you're making. Then basically this is the chisel, so when that goes into the stand like this, here's a good pro tip. Put something at the bottom here. There's always a hole for the drills to go through, which is great when you're trying to drill something in the sense of going through a piece of wood and having the drill bit not hit the metal itself. But when you're setting one of these up, I've lost more of these chisels by having them slide through the hole and hit the bottom concrete or the steel that's at the bottom of the drill. And then basically the chisel itself goes into the mount, just like that, and tightens up with this wing nut, and then the drill bit itself goes into the thing. What we're doing is basically adjusting this so that it's just barely reaching out, and that's on the auger bit part of it. So now we got a big, nice square rectangle hole here, but you can tell there's some little imperfections that we need to work out. I just use a railroad vise. There's nothing fancy you need to do related to that. Just have some plastic jaws. Get yourself a really nice kind of rasp. And then what I do is just basically work out flattening my cut itself. Doesn't take much. You don't need any fancy tools related to that. Here's a good trick once you get to this point. In reality, you're going to drill both of these holes from either side and try to connect them. But what happens is in the inside, you can actually wiggle this thing around and not go through the other side. So you end up having a clean hole on both sides. So what I do is I end up going in here, and then I end up basically trying to move this around different directions. What I'm doing is, inside the wood, is I'm actually kind of wiggling it like this until you end up getting basically a hole that goes all the way through to the other side. And that's actually our stand. What I'm going to do is end up running boards through here. from both sides, and then we'll end up running a bolt through here so they'll connect. Pretty much that's it to get that base in. I have these pieces of wood, which I have them in various lengths, and some more like lattice, so you could probably make this out of lattice itself. Typically when you'd be getting this, I'd be getting out the big table saw, I'd be getting off crosscut, some other different tools related to it. But in reality, all I need to really do is grab, this is the Catch Moses dovetailing jig, which is perfect, and a Japanese saw. And that's all you really need to get these type of things sized down. Way quicker than me dragging out the tools, the extension cord, and everything else that's related to it. So let's do some sawing. And let's take these, I'm going to make these all 12 inches. Got my square that I like these blue ones. I don't know why, other than they're blue. Everybody else is into red ones right now, but I'm into blue. So size off these guys, make for the 12 inches. And then pretty much all I do is drop it in my vise. Same thing. I mean, this vise is heavy enough by itself that it doesn't need to be mounted down. I can slide it around my table saw or anything else that I'm working on. I'm really just taking the Catch Moses dovetailing jig and using it to line up my saw. Then I'm basically taking the Catch Moses, lining that up on the line. Saw just grabs a hold of the magnets, and then basically using this is just, remember all these saws are pull saws, so it's different than the American saws. Then once I get it started, then I pretty much can follow it down. It's just a nice, I'm not putting any work related to this at all, I'm just ending up pulling, and then we get that really nice cutoff. Next stage is basically I wanted to build a knob for the end of this table itself. You could buy one in MasterCar, or you could basically do as easily as just basically taking a hole saw and drilling a hole, because we need a hole in the middle of it. You could cut out your shape. I actually have an X-Carve. You may look familiar. This is Greg from Sean Boyd made this. And then I set it up in the X-Carve software and then let Greg do his job. We now have all the parts cut out, put together, sanded. This is the table I'm actually put together where the iPad would sit on. What I ended up doing was putting a small fiddle on the side of this so that the iPad will stay on here and not fall off. As well as off camera, I put a small coved out piece of wood that runs down the back of the side of the iPad holder itself. What this has done is I've taken our blocks, which I've sanded and routed around, and then added a threaded bolt to it, which is hooked solid into one side of it and then threads through the back of the table itself and then through the other section. And then what we do is basically add the handle, or the knob that we actually made on the X-Carve, which then is threaded onto the back of that. Altogether, this gives you a structure like this, which allows it to spin, as well as give us their entry points for the masts that hold up the overall thing. Okay, and then as we get this up, basically this knob allows you to rotate this to where you want to use it, tighten up the knob, which pulls from this side to this side and basically tightens it up, allows you to mark it. I mean, macro-wise, as I'm looking at it in real life, I'm very impressed by it. I think this is exactly what I needed. Now what we're going to need to do is take the whole thing apart, sand it once again, and then add the finishes, and then let's see what it looks like in the house. Well, that was a good project. This is Richard with the WoodCombers. Thanks for joining me. If you're interested in following my channel, please hit the subscribe. Also, a like would be much appreciated. If you don't mind, I'll get back to watching some of my favorite YouTube